A father forgotten by time. Thomas was an old man who lived alone in a small apartment at the end of a quiet street. His wife had died many years ago, and his 3 sons had all built their own lives. The walls of his home were covered with old pictures of his family, full of smiles and memories. Every evening, he sat near the window, hoping for a call that never came. Thomas always believed that family was the most important thing in life. He had worked hard every day to give his sons education, food, and a safe home. He sold his car, skipped his dreams, and sacrificed his health for them. But now they barely remembered him. Sometimes he looked at their photos and whispered their names with tears in his eyes. One cold morning, Thomas decided to visit his eldest son, Michael. He dressed carefully in his old suit and took the bus across town. When he arrived, Michael's wife opened the door with a cold face. She said quickly, "He's busy," refusing to let him in. Thomas stood there for a moment, holding the small gift he had brought, and then quietly walked away. A few days later, he went to see his second son, David. This time, David came to the door but looked uncomfortable. His wife stood behind him with folded arms and an angry expression. David said softly, "Father, maybe it's not a good time." Thomas nodded, pretending to smile, and said, "Of course I understand." But inside, his heart slowly broke again. His last hope was his youngest son, Daniel, who lived in another town. The trip was long and tiring, but Thomas still went. When he knocked, Daniel opened the door, surprised to see him. He said nervously, "Father, you should have called first." From inside, his wife shouted, "We don't have space for visitors." Thomas realized he was not welcome, and his voice trembled when he said goodbye. That night, Thomas returned to his empty apartment. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at his cold cup of tea. The silence felt heavier than ever, pressing against his heart. He thought about the years he spent working late, the times he went hungry just to feed his sons. Now, all that love and sacrifice seemed forgotten, like dust in the wind. Days turned into weeks, and his health began to fade. He stopped leaving the apartment and rarely ate. Neighbors sometimes knocked to check on him, but he always said, "I'm fine." In the evenings, he looked through the window at the passing cars and wondered if his sons ever thought about him. Tears often fell quietly onto his trembling hands. One winter morning, Thomas wrote a letter. His handwriting was slow and shaky, but his words were full of love. He forgave his sons and thanked them for the beautiful years they once shared. He wrote, "Do not cry for me, but remember that love is worth nothing if it is forgotten." He folded the paper carefully and placed it on the table beside his family photos. 2 months later, the phone rang in each son's home. The news hit them like thunder that their father had died alone in his apartment. Shock and guilt filled their hearts. They hurried to the small funeral, but it was too late. The only thing waiting for them was the letter he had left behind, now slightly stained with tears. When they read his final words, silence covered the room. Regret burned deeply inside each of them as they realized how cruelly they had treated him. Michael, David, and Daniel cried together for the first time in years. They promised never to forget again what truly mattered. But the lesson came too late. Their father's love was gone, and only memory remained.